Hello and welcome back, everybody. SF Live episode 169 this Monday, early afternoon here in Vancouver. Early afternoon or late, well, not late afternoon, but on the East Coast as well. Chris is joining us from Washington in a few short seconds. Chris Marcus of Arcadia Economics, and we're going to talk with him everything silver related, of course. He's a self-pronounced world's largest silver bug, so I can't wait to chat with him and see what has changed since we last chatted during the big silver squeeze in late February. Of course, before we switch over to Chris, be reminded to follow us live on YouTube and on Twitter. We do all our interviews live, so make sure to turn on that bell notification as well. That way you get notified when we go live with another update, be it with an expert or a company CEO. And if you have any questions for Chris, make also sure to use the hashtag AskArc function on Twitter, or just use the YouTube chat, and we'll get to you, of course, then as well. Now, enough of me talking. Let me switch over to my guest. Chris, thanks for joining us again. How are you?
Kai, great to be here. Thanks for having me back on the show. Always a pleasure to catch up with you. And while the silver price may not indicate it, I think there might be something interesting going on. So if you have any questions about that, we can dig in today.
Yeah, we're going to work through that and see why A, the silver price hasn't moved, and B, like what's coming up and why it should be moving up. So we last spoke during the big silver squeeze. We had you on during a special we were doing with Phil Baker and David Morgan as well. And we were quite excited about the Reddit movement, of course, bringing a lot of light and attention to the silver sector. But now we're back at $26 an ounce. Like, we briefly touched 30, but overall not much has changed in terms of price for silver. Like, run us through the last couple months, and why hasn't the silver price moved?
Well, it has been a fascinating past couple of months. And I guess to be clear and make sure I get my linguistics accurate, the silver price has actually changed quite a bit for anyone who actually buys silver. Perhaps this would be a good time to distinguish between paper silver and physical silver. And I know you mentioned before we started, let's stick to facts today, which I'm all about. Or I'm going to at least try to, because I have the LBMA's recent silver report pulled up. Now, I caught several errors in here, substantial errors, I might add already. But, there's some data in here. I don't know if it's fact, but at least what they wrote was rather eye-opening. And it adds some insight to why we've seen the physical silver price move, and then the paper price, actually, I believe, depending on when you mark it, it's actually lower than when people started buying silver, which is a little unusual, right?
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's like we're $26, and like for me, like as a retail novice, I look at this. Let's say I go to kitco.com and I see the silver price at $26. What am I looking at there?
I don't know. I can't figure out what the spot price means. I know I have a silver show. I have a lot of guests, although no one actually can figure it out. Like, what is a spot silver price if you can't actually get silver at that price?
Yeah, that's a good point, because Kitco and other bullion dealers and Miles Franklin, they're all selling their coins at much higher prices. I think I just bought a silver coin because somebody won it in a raffle. I think I paid 41 Canadian dollars for it. All right. So I think it was a Philharmonic or so. I got to look that up, but it definitely wasn't 26 US dollars an ounce. Right. So
yeah, well, that's the thing, is that if you actually want to buy silver, the price of that has been going up, but you have this paper silver price where it's a little bit different. And I thought it was interesting because you may know that acting Commissioner Benham, it's kind of funny, acting is a key word there. He's acting like a commissioner, at least on the surface of it. And he said on February 1st, they were opening an investigation to check manipulation, which, of course, I applaud and champion if they actually mean it. Although on Silver Tuesday, February 2nd, that's right, Kai, I'm officially naming it Silver Tuesday. I think when you have the biggest felony in the history of silver, which between you and me, there's some competition there. I mean, this is, one of the shadier Wall Street playing grounds that we've seen. So when you actually top that, I feel it's worthy of a nickname, because it's interesting. I have there's this great website called Gold Charts Are Us by Nick Laird in Australia. I'm working on a project with him to get Silver Charts Are Us to give people some data, since the main provider of data in the silver market, I think, should be in jail. We'll leave him nameless for today, but I'd be happy to back up that statement amongst anything else I will say here. But when you actually look at the data of these inflows, that these bankers, and they giggle about us keyboard thumping, Reddit, social media. I mean, anyone who's not working for Goldman Sachs or J.P. Morgan is obviously just a stupid piece of garbage, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that the
Of
banks
course,
have made
we don't
that
know anything.
clear.
So
Yeah, we're the only thing we're good for is to take Goldman Sachs' shitty deals. But here's what I don't get, Kai. Prior to January of 2021, this year, if you look at single day inflows into the Silver Trust, the largest amount in a single day was about 20 million ounces ever. Okay. So on Friday, January 29th, 34 million ounces were added into the SLV Trust. Allegedly, I will say, because I don't know anyone who can tell me where the metal came from under the current accounting scheme. And I might add, just to be clear, this includes calling iShares twice, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, the CME, the CFTC, Perth Mint. And a lot of the questions we can get into today, not only do I ask them, they don't have answers. I'm going to say, okay, maybe it's the investor relation guy. I'll wait on hold. Is there someone there? They get their supervisor. At least iShares put a supervisor on the phone. He couldn't answer it either. And when I told him about the conflicts of interest and asked, would you recommend this to someone in your family? He said, I can't answer that. They can't answer anything. They can't answer my questions. I get questions from people who watch my show, and I'm up late all night every day answering them. I'm kind of tired, but I don't know. Like I there's some answer. I called JP Morgan. I called Goldman Sachs. It's interesting. You can call these banks and tell them you publicly accuse their guys of felonies. You think they're dirtier than dirty, and you're giving them a chance to answer any of the allegations. I'm like, hey, I'll tell you why. I'll show you what I said. Is there anyone who will respond to this? If I'm missing something, the people who answer the phone, they can't even transfer you over to the legal department. They just don't know. Nobody knows. So I will admit I have a lot of questions without answers, but so I couldn't figure out how the 34 million was added on the 29th. Then you had more added on Monday. And then Tuesday, February 2nd, while all this brouhaha was going on, SLV reports adding 61 million ounces of silver. Now, until January, the record was 20 million. So that's 3 times the record in the history of silver. And you know what happened to the price on February 2nd?
It dropped. Because somebody dropped...
Not a little, though, Kai.
It dropped quite a bit, from $30 to $26 or something, because somebody dropped, what was it, 1.5 billion ounces of silver on the market? Was that the number? I heard that the other day.
It's interesting because Goldman Sachs sent Jeff Curry, their head chief of commodities, to lie on February 2nd while the price was coming down. And, again, if anyone thinks I'm bluffing, I don't know. I'd love to meet Jeff in a discovery process. You can watch what he said for yourself, see if it's completely fraudulent. Then February 3rd, they changed the prospectus documents in the middle of the night. They didn't notify anyone. I didn't find out until Ronan Manley wrote an article about it a week later. Fortunately, he noticed. But I might add, when I called iShares to ask how they let their investors know that, well, they're authorized participant. Goldman Sachs, they're an authorized participant of SLV. So when Jeff Curry went on TV and said a short squeeze is impossible because of position limits, which Goldman Sachs, they violate routinely, and the CME couldn't explain that or give me information on that either. So Jeff, on February 2nd, while the price is coming down, he's contributing to that. JP Morgan contributed to that by putting out a sell report, despite that iShares telling me they're the ones who had the silver. So you would think JP Morgan would have known that a new record of silver has been going into their trust, yet they picked that day. They put out a report at 5 o'clock Eastern in the morning. So by the time the market opened, things were getting hammered. I wonder if anybody had access to that before they put it out, because that would be a felony if somebody front ran that one, right, Kai?
It would be, yeah. No, it would be. The question is, how do you escalate that properly? All of us talking is one thing, right? But how do you take that to the next level? Me calling the legal department, even, I won't get any answers. But, how do you get proper answers? How do you take it from a theoretical stage to reality, right?
Well, that's a great question, Kai. A lot of people have asked that. I asked it for a decade, then finally I found the answer. That's part of why I'm in Washington today, because tomorrow, April 20th, 10 a.m., I'll be outside of the CFTC's headquarters trying to get answers to some of the cryptic comments, such as Rostin Benham, the same guy who announced on February 1st there was an investigation. February 2nd on possibly, I don't have exact numbers on the physical demand, although Miles Franklin, they told me that was their highest call volume ever on February 2nd. And we know that the trust, which Wall Street thinks is the silver market, tripled, except for the previous Friday. They doubled that, but if it had been for that day, they would have tripled the previous record. So I'm thinking if the guy really wants to investigate silver, this is pretty obvious because on top of it, on February 4th, they sent Jeff Curry out the day after the prospectus changes. Maybe he didn't interview on February 3rd. Maybe he was busy doing the prospectus changes that I asked iShares if they notified their investors. Of course, they did not. So I think that's fraudulent. But then Jeff came back, lied again on the 4th. That was when he said the shorts are the ETFs. They buy physical and go short in the COMEX, which is kind of bizarre because if SLV is a trust for customers, it's their metal. It's not It's not the custodian's metal. So if you're shorting on the COMEX, you got your hedge backwards.
Yeah.
Or you lied because in the SLV prospectus, it actually explicitly says there's no futures COMEX trading. So that's another felony committed. Although then he says it can't happen because of position limits, which they violate. But here's what I don't get, Kai. I submitted evidence to the CFTC's whistleblower on February 12th. That was the first round. And I did another round about a month later, which they've been sitting on.
Interesting.
Which I would consider obstruction of justice, in my opinion. I'm not a lawyer, but here's what I don't get. Finally, on March 18th, I just saw that Rostin Benham, the guy who opened the investigation, he actually did an interview on some channel. It had 80 views by the time I saw it. So really getting the information out to the market. Here's Rosty. He's a lawyer, no less. I mean, if you're a lawyer, you already know how to lie. It's part of the job. Sorry if there are any honest lawyers out there. Maybe there's a few, so I'm not trying to. But you already know how to lie. You know that when someone asks you a question that you're going to lie about, that's when you say, well, I can't talk because there's an ongoing investigation. But Rosty must have failed that in legal school because they're talking about it and they're saying, what happened with silver and he's saying, well, it came really close. Things almost got out of control when that sparked up. We had to tamp it down. And then later he says, we almost had a really dangerous situation. And I'm confused. What is it? I don't know. People were buying, the price goes up. What is the danger there?
Yeah, like where does it come from? What does it mean? Like what's supposed to happen? Who's short? Like who's losing money on the other end, right? Like what's danger?
So does he mean there is a danger to the banks that were short?
Yeah.
Or does he mean there was a danger? Clearly, it doesn't mean there was a danger to the investors that he swore an oath to protect. Because why? I don't know. Stock market sets records every day. There's nobody like worried about the danger of that Ponzi scheme bond bubble that these politicians have the audacity to pledge an oath, say they're going to protect the country, and then oh yeah, we need more tanks. How about the real risk of security of the U.S. is that the currency's a Ponzi scheme. I'm not worried. I grew up in the U.S. I'm actually getting ready to leave the U.S. because of these issues. I'm not scared about the terrorists. I was running from the dust cloud on September 11th, and I don't think it was a bunch of random box cutters from wherever. We'll leave that one at that.
No.
But I mean, how about, that's what I'm scared about. I'm scared about the way the government steals money. I'm scared about $145 trillion of undocumented adjustments that the government responses to create FASB 56 say, we're not going to show you any more accounting statements for the good of the country. That's what scares me out of the country. And when Rosty, here's the commissioner, we're asking for answers. How come? I've been calling saying, hey, did you guys get my evidence? Did you look at it? The crime's happening every day. You said you're investigating. There are people who've been waiting since 1980. And if anybody wants to dig into the history of the CFTC in 1980, please let me know. Send in questions. I'll answer them today.
Yeah.
I don't need a lawyer.
Yeah. No, I got you. It's like, but you strike me as a pragmatic, same as me, right? So I want things done yesterday. So when I send something, like if I was like you, like I sent something in, like I expect answers tomorrow, right? Maybe is the process? I don't know. I'm playing devil's advocate, right? Like, is the process too slow? Will we hear from them in 10 years when it's too late anyway? That we finally worked through the issue.
I don't plan on waiting 10 years. In fact, I actually called the Commissioner Benham a couple of weeks ago and told him that you can sit there and do whatever you want. I mean, there's people who've been waiting since 1980. So I want to get this. I'd like to see some integrity in this market before I'm dead.
Yeah.
So I interviewed Commissioner Chilton back in March of 2019. So that's over 2 years ago. The guy confirmed how rigged the investigation was. He went into detail about it. CFTC has never asked about that. They've never explained it. They said they found nothing. Bart Chilton said they found plenty. Would you like a couple highlights of what he found? For the guy, one of the guys who was in the investigation.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Okay, starters. He was a little disappointed when he found out the other commissioners started blocking evidence that people were sending in, alerting them to the silver manipulation. That was Bart Chilton's words, not mine. He was disappointed. Keep in mind, this investigation said they didn't find anything, and this same CFTC last year said they found hundreds of thousands of occasions over the same period of time where they said they didn't find anything because commissioners were blocking evidence. So maybe tomorrow at the CFTC, someone can explain what has been done to correct that, because that seems like 10 years later it was very costly. They blocked the evidence. Their constituents they swore an oath to protect got clobbered, and now here it is 10 years later. What's being done about that? I don't know. I can't get an answer.
So what do you plan to achieve tomorrow? So you're going to go outside protest outside of the CFTC, which by the way is the Commodities Futures Trade Commission, right? Mm-hmm. So what's your exact plan? Are you just going to like run us through it?
Well, it's kind of evolving as we go, but tonight I'm releasing a double feature on the Arcadia Economics channel, and I think anyone interested in silver, frankly, I think you're going to want to see, because it's great when you match what the LBMA. You don't even need the LBMA's report, but when you match what they say, and I'll give you some nuggets from that one, with what Rostin Benham says. Hey, if anyone at the CFT, I'm going to go to the CFTC tomorrow, so I'm there in person. I'll call. I'll let them know I'm out there. And if anyone can answer these questions, in fact, I told one of their lawyers I talked to last week, who his asshole puckered up real tight after I mentioned I had legal action going. All of a sudden, he didn't want to talk. Even the lawyers, they don't have anything to say. So I'm going to be there because I believe in honesty, integrity. I said something. I put my name and face to it. I'll back it up. I'll go there, and I'm going to give them their chance to respond. I don't expect they'll do anything. No. But I'm going to share some truth bombs in the next couple of days, some stuff that I don't think they want people to see. No. But it's going to come out, and it's going to be on the record that I was there, gave them the chance to defend themselves, and ask, what is it that Ross was afraid of? What was it? I don't understand that.
Interesting. Yeah, what was that danger? Like, really curious what that is. Yeah.
And actually, Kai, if I may, one other part of the answer to your question. So I have some videos that I think personally he'll be embarrassed by. Then I'll go there tomorrow and we'll create more of a circus, completely peaceful. So no, just to be clear, you're welcome to come join in. Peaceful only. We're going to stay within their legal code as much as they abuse their own rules.
No, fair enough. You got a GoFundMe going as well to actually have.
And we have a GoFundMe going where people can pledge money just to get them to answer the questions. Did you look at the data? Did you see that the greatest fraud in the history of the silver market happened the day after, and that Rostin Benham seems a lot more concerned about the banks than the people he's supposed to protect? So people pledge money if the CFTC upholds its oath and answers any of these questions I feel are reasonable. And then, hey, you don't have to pledge money. If you want answers to those questions, you can do it. If they just answer, the money goes to charity. Help the victims of the child trafficking, which I'm sure everybody would be in favor of helping people who have been abused.
Yeah. No, that's
all they have to do is answer the questions. But if they refuse to do that, the money will go towards a lawsuit against the CFTC. I don't know if it's fraud or treason, whatever you call what they've done, but it's pretty horrific. And so that to answer your question, I'm not waiting another 10 years.
No, I like hearing you take action. I'm sure, like, and you can confirm that the Silver Squeeze, as you said, like hashtag Silver Squeeze movement on Reddit, like just generated a lot of visibility for you, right? And that movement, like, have you been gaining traction? I know your YouTube channel has been growing, your Twitter following has been growing. Like, do you see more and more like that happening? Is it snowballing into something bigger now, or is it just a voice in the? Or is it still just that one voice? I don't think it is, by the way.
I don't think so. I'll speak for myself, because I dislike, I have a hard time dealing with dishonest people who lie, cheat, and steal as much as they can without any regard, and even when they get caught, double down. So yeah, there's a little part of me that you hear the anger at that, but in terms of like these guys they're making me a fortune by just reporting their fraud. Because there's a lot of people who appreciate seeing how they've been cheated. Now they understand it. I don't know. Maybe that's why some people are pulling their money out of SLV and buying physical or buying PSLV. But Kai, can I read you a little something here that you might find interesting? This is from the LBMA's report. It's on their website. I know people, if you hear this, maybe you'll think I'm making it up, but so they're talking about the keyboard thumpers, and here we go. Bottom of page 6. As the social media frenzy gathered pace in late January, demand for coins, bars, and ETPs all jumped. This was concentrated in the iShares fund, where holdings rose 110 million ounces. Given that most of this metal was allocated in London, fears emerge as to whether there was enough silver should this demand continue to take place. This is the LBMA writing this. At the end of February 2021, 765 was allocated in London against the ETPs, leaving 360 ounces of potentially available metal. They just told you how much they actually have left.
I actually just have that open as well, the LBMA. It's interesting, yeah. It's unbelievable.
Here's the best part. They talk about, they're like, and keep in mind, the paragraph before it says, global holdings surged by 119 million ounces. So let's call it 120. They had 360 million ounces left. That means 2 more sets of 3 days like that, they didn't have any metal. No wonder Ralston Benham of the CFTC was so concerned. He knew they were running out. The LBMA just confirmed it. They said they were weeks away. And then if you read through this dipshit report, they have the audacity at the end to say, well, could this happen again? Let me pull that up. You got to hear this because looking ahead, one key question is whether this dynamic could return. This is very unlikely. The COVID-related conditions that culminated in the explosion of precious metals EFP were unprecedented. LBMA, hey, let me give you a little secret. You don't have a fucking clue what you're talking about or why people are buying silver. And when you write a report saying, now keep in mind, Kai, the 120 million, that's only the ETFs. So we don't know if people buy more physical, maybe that comes out of the London pool. So let's review what the LBMA just said. In their words, we were weeks away from running out of silver because of what happened over 3 random days. And they think it's unlikely it could happen. But they don't mention, what if it does?
Yeah.
I heard an interview with Rick Rule. Somebody asked him, do you think this could happen again? He's like, yeah, I think it's going to happen a lot. And here's my question, Kai. If all these keyboard thumpers who thought they were going to, trap the silver shorts that don't exist yet is confirmed in the SIVR prospectus change. Smart move there, fellas. So if you told them they had no chance, they're a bunch of conspiracy theorists, but then you mentioned they bought 120 million ounces of silver in 3 days and you only had 360 million ounces left. And while the pace has slowed since then, it's still elevated. So if you just told them, hey, another 6 days, if you guys went 3 days, if you had got 9, you would have cleaned us out. And they confirmed it. And then they called you stupid and said it's unlikely this could happen again. What do you think the chances that could happen again, Kai?
Well, I think it's pretty likely, to be honest. And I actually have the report open as well, like on lbma.org.uk. And I find it interesting that that they actually comment on GameStop in their report, the social media, that they're actually throwing words around like Reddit and GameStop in a metals report. It's mind blowing. It's really interesting. I'm going to actually read the whole thing.
That makes sense. It's a relevant topic. Although what's mind blowing is that they actually admitted how scared they are and that they were running out of metal. And so that's what it goes back to. I don't understand if a regulator says he's scared of that. Is he actually mentioned managing the price in what he said. I know people think maybe I'm making that up. I could be bluffing. Tune in tonight. You'll find out.
Great.
What isn't that? Reminds me of Chris Giancarlo, former CFTC guy who gave a speech bragging about how one of the untold stories of the Trump administration was they popped the Bitcoin bubble in 2017. They said, we used the advent of a CME futures to pop the bubble. Oh, yeah. They mentioned Steve Mnuchin, Gary Cohn. There's a lot of Goldman Sachs. Did they know you were going to pop the bubble? And who told you that it was now the government's decision to decide what's a bubble and what needs to be popped? And how did you learn how to pop it with a COMEX future? Where could you have learned that? And then this pimp, he has the audacity to go out there and say that was the first bubble since 2008. This guy he was appointed by Trump. Does anybody remember when Trump was campaigning, calling the stock market a big, fat, ugly bubble? So they played God in the market. They decided, and by the way, that worked really well. They popped it at 20,000. Now it's at 60. So you see what happens when government pops bubble. And if you think the Bitcoin move was big, once people find out the truth about silver, you'll see a move like a real move in silver when the CFTC is done managing he actually said manage the silver price. This guy's a lawyer. Good. Explain it in court, Rosti. Good luck with that.
Interesting. We got to wrap this up here. I love that discussion. It's very heated. I love the emotion in it. It's fantastic. But from your point of view, like, of course, we talked supply and demand, right? Like, to a degree, like we talked about, supply pretty much was non-existent at some point. But at this point, like, as of today, where do you think the silver price should be then? Like, obviously not $26. It obviously is probably not 41 Canadian dollars, whatever that is in US. Maybe 36 for an ounce physical. If you buy a coin, like, what's the realistic price? Where do you think we should be right now?
I'm going to give you an indirect answer, if you can believe that. Once Bernie Madoff acknowledged that he was running a Ponzi scheme, did he move a little or a lot?
He moved.
It went to zero pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
So I would say in this case, great way to phrase it, the paper silver, that's the Ponzi scheme. And physical silver is going to be the beneficiary of the implosion of the Ponzi scheme. So I'm careful with my answers. I understand I'm running a show, and I don't know how this, whenever this unravels, and it was unraveling on February 2nd. Let's be clear about that. We now have, Kai, maybe, trust me, this is the tip of the iceberg of the evidence, as I think you can guess. So when it goes, I don't think we're saying like, oh, maybe silver across 50 and maybe it'll hit 60 in a couple of years. When it goes, it's going to go big. Keep in mind, we have Bitcoin up 120x in the last 5 years. And here's silver at half of its 2011 high, half of its 1980 high. And the LBMA and the CFTC, they just explained incredibly clearly exactly why that's happening.
Chris, we're going to leave it at that. We got to bring you back soon. Catch up with you about the CFTC and what you got out of them, of course. So can't wait to have you back on. Chris, it was a fantastic conversation. Really, really appreciate your time. And good luck out there.
Well, I sure appreciate that. Thanks so much, Kai, and we'll check in again soon.
Fantastic. Everybody else, thanks for watching. This was SF Live episode 169 with Chris Marcus of Arcadia Economics. Very emotional, very interesting discussion about the silver price and what's been happening behind the scenes that Chris is talking about with the CFTC directly. So make sure to follow us on YouTube and Twitter. All our interviews are live, so make sure to hit that bell notification as well and to tune in for more updates and live interviews. Thanks so much, Chris.